Yes, everyone. It's the middle of the week. We're back for another Talk of the League special, or as I always like to call it, let's not get cancelled for another week. Joining me tonight, thankfully, he doesn't have his eyes on the Champions League tonight, like a lot of other people. We've got Mark from the Walt podcast. Mark, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Ready for a big week for us as a club coming up. But yeah, good.
No worries. Welcome to Talk of the League. I'm so happy to have you on. The vibe we kind of go for is very relaxed. So I hope I can make you feel at home tonight as my guest.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Generally relaxed is the only way I generally talk anyway when it comes to football. So sounds good.
Good, no worries. Let's get right into it. Did you see the controversy of the weekend regarding Liverpool and Forest?
I saw it secondhand, not when it started. I think the Forest game kicked off before ours. So I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention to it apart from the score. Hoping from our point of view that Liverpool got a last minute winner, and they did. But I've seen it since. Obviously, I've seen the response from Forest as well. Yeah.
Just what were your thoughts on that? You know, Forest obviously looking like they're getting a good point. You know, obviously started a little bit quite decently under Nuno, then maybe just slipped away a little bit, and they're still down there. You know, they could still, sleepwalk their way into the relegation zone. Like, just seeing that in general of how they lost and how it went about. What are your thoughts on the actual decision itself and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's the wrong decision, right? I think most people saw it's the wrong decision. And look, as a Luton Town fan, I see a lot of decisions go against the smaller teams in this league. It does. I've seen it at Kenilworth Road. I've seen it away from home as well. I would say that it's a bit of a stretch to say that one decision led to Liverpool's goal. I mean, I've seen it back. There's two and a half minutes. The ball goes back and forth before it ends up getting in the back of the net. But so I think the idea that one decision has cost them the game, I think they can, like we can, in our last minute goal that we conceded, look at our defending. So I think, yeah, the decisions in the league, some of them on the field and some of them in VAR, I really do feel like a lot of the times the big teams get the decisions. I find that the whole Mark Clattenburg thing hilarious, if I'm honest. That Forest employing let's just spend some more money. I mean, they're not in trouble about FFP already, are they? So let's just buy some more people that can that can say stuff that we already know. But yeah, I mean, for me, look, it's the wrong decision. And I do, as a team down there, I do see it happen. But I would also say in that particular instance, they can't point all of that to the goal. I just find that crazy to say that was the reason why Liverpool scored, but that's just me.
No, of course, I agree. I think obviously they'll be unhappy, obviously. Like you saw the owner at the end, the way he went onto the pitch. Obviously it's the way it happens, when a moment like that happens, that the fine margins in football where 1 point becomes 0 points, especially down there. And to watch it go away in that manner, obviously sometimes you just in that scenario on the Forest side of things, you forget how the rest of the game went about. You forget any little detail where, if we stuck away this chance, or if he defended better or whatever. So, I mean, for me, quite frankly, I found it quite refreshing and a little bit funny to see the owner storm onto the pitch the way he did and confront the referee. I don't know what you made of it.
I don't think it helps their cause on stable ownership models, but it's definitely good for entertainment, I guess. Look, I think it's a detraction, isn't it? Let's be honest as well. It's a detraction away from a lot of the issues that are going on at a club that realistically didn't expect to be fighting against relegation as much as they are this season, right? They spent money again, maybe not as much as they did in the first season, or that's hard. And I think most Forest fans, I'm a Luton supporter. I go to most games. I am from Nottingham region, so I know quite a lot of people who are Forest fans. I think at the start of the season, they were looking at consolidating their league position around mid-table. So I think a bit of it's a distraction. They certainly weren't expecting to lose Cooper and Nuno coming in and everything else. So I think it's a little bit of a show. I think Clattenburg's probably a bit of the same. Having said that, if it had happened to Luton, I probably would have been in the same camp of being annoyed, angry about it. Absolutely. Holding teams like Liverpool to a draw at home is tough. We managed it just about, although they did score in the last minute against us as well. Otherwise, we'd have taken all three. But there's been a number of occasions where decisions have gone against us. Seemingly basic errors of judgment have gone against us. And we've lost out as a result of it, either overall or just within that play. But I think for me it's a bit of a detraction as well. All of that kind of owner storming onto the pitch away from what is clearly a disaster of a season on the pitch, and it's turning that way off it as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the comments coming in, a shout out to the Walt podcast for commenting and Dara for coming in. And we've just been kindly joined by Keen, actually. He's just popped in out of nowhere. Keen, how are you?
Good lads. How's things?
Yeah, grand. But yeah, what I was Keen, I'll ask you about your thoughts on it as well. But the comments coming in are valid, especially the one about the Clattenburg role. It does look like they're trying to gain favour, because a decision like that can go against them. Someone like Clattenburg can come out and be like, that was incorrect, that was this or that, because we don't seem to be getting that from that Dermot Gallagher show, to be honest. We don't seem to get any clarity as to what the decisions are and are not. So it does look to an extent like that. I mean, Keane, obviously, what were your thoughts on the whole thing? Let's just call it a thing. What were your whole thoughts on the whole just Forest Liverpool thing that happened?
I think, look, to be fair, I can see it from both sides. I think Forest weren't streetwise enough when obviously the head injury happened. Like, they weren't streetwise at all. They didn't keep the ball. They let Luis Diaz kick it up the pitch, and not one of their players, not their defender, not their captain, not anyone said, hey, listen, bring that ball back. Do you know what I mean? They just accepted it and got back into shape. Look, which you can say from a defensive point of view is grand, but when you're in a situation, when you're in a relegation dogfight and a possible points deduction coming, you try to take everything you can get. And like, if you look at that situation, was a Hudson-Odoi was the one in the corner. He should have that ball in his hand, and he should be saying to Luis Diaz, like, here, fuck off, like, we have possession. That's what they should be doing, but obviously they didn't. And then obviously Liverpool go up and score. I do think, look, I can see from Forest's point of view why they're frustrated, because obviously they could potentially get relegated this season, with points deductions coming, and obviously Everton look to be in a better position now, and Luton are playing well at the minute. Like, there is a scenario here where Forest have spent all this money, they go down, and all of a sudden shit hits the fan. By going down to the Championship, financial fair play and stuff. I know the parachute payments might help them, but it could go really badly if Forest do get relegated, because there's no guarantee, if you look at the competitiveness of the Championship, that they come back up straight away. We've seen Sunderland spend a load of money and they're still down there. They even got relegated to League One. Like, so when I look at it that way, I think, like, Forest, they spunked a heap of money on 30 players last year. So Man United can't talk about spunking money, can we? But, like, with the way they've done it in 1 year, it is a bit erratic, especially when you've just come off from the Championship. Like, if you look at Luton, for example, like Luton in the last summer, Mark may have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but like they've spent very little in comparison to like your Sheffield United, Burnley, and If you factor in Forest last year, you know,
we spent very little comparison to like top half of the championship. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like, you know, in comparison, like if you look at like Luton's business, for example, you got Barkley in on a free, Joe Ogbene in from Rotherham, you know, Joe Tai Chong coming in for very little as well. Like, they've done good business to obviously be competitive in the Premier League, whereas you look at Forest signings, like, so big contract for Jesse Lingard on a 1-year deal, you know, last year. Joe Dean Henderson last year, Keylor Navas. Joe, like, and to be fair, like, look, it was ambitious. It was ambitious for Forest to try to do that, but they didn't spend within their means. I know, because they don't make the revenue coming in the way, they're going to be bitten in the backside for it. So I hate Liverpool. So when I seen it happen, my first reaction was straight away, like, these Scouse bastards have done it now again. You know, Jurgen Klopp's fairy tale. So the narrative was there, but look, Forest, in all fairness, weren't streetwise enough. And, you know, if that was Man United, if that was Bruno Fernandes in that corner, and, you know, he let Luis Diaz boot it up the pitch, I'd be raging as well, you know, in that case. So yeah, look, they just have to get on with it. They have to try to get some results, because, you know, yourself, relegation fights, you know, they normally go down to the nitty gritty. They go down to the last day. So, I think from that point of view, and Forest just need to get over themselves. And also as well, I think, like, look, employing an ex-referee, what does that do? Like, do they explain how the decision was given against them? Like, if they wanted to get that advice, would they not just watch Sky Sports News on a Monday and watch Dermot Gallagher, you know, talk shit? Like, do you know what I mean? If that's what they want, if they want to hear refereeing insight, why don't they just do that? Like, it doesn't have any effect on their performances on the pitch. You know, they're employing someone, they're spending more money on a position where, you know, like, what does it actually do? Like, what does Mark Clattenburg do?
I think they've got to think that it gives them some kind of an advantage, right? So they've got to think that having Clattenburg talk about a point of law, that next week, I can't remember who Forest are playing next. I mean, they're playing us in a week's in a little while's time, in a week's time. But their next game, they've got to think that it's going to help them on the pitch. Surely, I mean, I'm not suggesting that it would. I'm hoping that it wouldn't, obviously, but they've got to think it gives them some kind of advantage, right? Either that or with PGMOL rather.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. I think they must think maybe it might enhance their relationship with the referees by having, you know, their buddy Clattenburg there. But I just don't see. I don't know. If anything, I actually think it might make it worse, because they could undermine. You know, they could undermine nearly the referee's decisions by having, you know, an ex-colleague of theirs working at the club. Like, I couldn't imagine, you know, as much of a pun this is, imagine Manchester United hiring Howard Webb right now. Do you know what I mean? I know there's people made allegations years ago that yeah, I was getting to that. Like, people made allegations years ago that Howard Webb gave us all the decisions. But, like, imagine us doing that, or us hiring Phil Dowd, or someone like that. Like, you know, I think at the end of the day, just get on with the game. Look, we all know the referees in England are right now are incompetent. Do you know what I mean? Refereeing in general. Like, I watch League of Ireland over here, like, as well as watching Man United, and some of the decisions over here on Friday night were fucking abysmal. Do you know what I mean? I think the standard of refereeing just in general right now, like, especially on this side of of Europe, like, you know, England, Ireland, Scotland, you know, like, the standard of refereeing and the way it's implemented, I think is brutal compared to, like, if you look at leagues like Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A. That I think, like, the consistency of refereeing is much better, and that's why you see in the Champions League why the foreign referees are utilised more than the English ones. You know, so, like, look, at the end of the day, I think right now Forest just have to accept, so take their poison and just try score some goals to finish their chances. That's what they're going to have to do now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think it's interesting you mentioned, obviously, the recruitment there for Luton, and obviously this leads us nicely into the race for survival. And when you look at the way teams spend, I am on record, by the way, somewhere on YouTube on another show, where I've said that Luton's recruitment policy would probably be players who have championship experience or some form of Premier League experience, but not splash the cash. The reference I used for it was Moneyball in the sense, and you might see that with the likes of, Tim Krul, Andros Townsend, and Ross Barkley. A great team for the Premier League in 2013-14. Maybe not so much now, but Luton's recruitment out of all the three teams that have come up seems to be a lot more methodical compared to Burnley, who spent loads of money on players that might fit, but arguably two of their best players they didn't keep around. And then Sheffield United were forced to sell their better players and try to replace them. So, I mean, before we move on, I was going to say, Evan has kindly joined us. Evan,
how's the story, kids? Hey, the Messiah has returned, the chosen one. Fuck it, I'm claiming it now.
Yes, you're the Messiah.
I thought you were
I
saying
love it.
I'm back, but yeah, I'm back again. But all right, Evan, to be fair, I'll give you that title.
Slim Shamrock is back. What's the crack, lads? Sorry for being late. No,
We're talking about
in the
teams
door
down
for
the
work.
bottom, so we might talk about Chelsea in a moment.
You fucking motherfucker! I'm only in 2 seconds. You can't.
Had to get that
Mark,
in
what's
there.
the crack? How you keeping?
I'm good. I'm very good. Although I think
Happy days.
we're talking about bottom of the league. I imagine you're thinking of the bottom 3 or 4, right?
Well, look, Mark, if
Chelsea on
you're
that,
happy,
though, yeah.
I'm happy. Yeah, that kind of way. Yeah, no, I'm only in the door for work. I'm rushing around the place. Had to make it back for the show. Had to.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
fair
the
enough.
commitment.
Yeah, we
Hey,
appreciate
look,
that.
it's just what you got to do. Like, you know what I mean? If you want the best, you call the best.
I was already here, and so was Keane. And Mark's done very well on here tonight. So
Happy
thanks,
days.
but maybe we don't need you.
Oh, fuck you, so.
But yeah, Mark, I'll raise the question to you about obviously down there. I've already mentioned that Forest might find themselves sleepwalking into relegation. Everton, you never know what you're going to get with them, although they are looking better under Sean Dyche this season. How do you think it is currently for all three teams that came up? And how do you think the rest of the season might pan out for the 4 or 5 teams at the bottom?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I would say. You were talking about recruitment. I mean, that's our model. It's been our model for the last few years. Is pick players that either have a point to prove, they're unfancied, or they're young, which suits the money that kind of Moneyball analogy a bit, that kind of Brighton analogy. But the difference is we'll also pick up someone like experience, like Barkley. I mean, teams like your Brighton and actually even interestingly, obviously Burnley turned their nose up at Townsend after he nearly signed a contract for them because they went for someone younger. And I think that's been part of Burnley's problem. They've been signing loads of these young promising players from Belgium because company knows them, but they've had no experience. There's nothing to hold that to. Look at their keeper, Trafford, who they spent a huge amount of money on and only has really played in League One. I think in terms of the relegation battle, if you like, I'd call it a battle from us. I'll be honest. Burnley and Sheffield United look absolutely done. We're the only ones who give them 2 points, which is very nice of us. But generally speaking, watching the games last weekend, I know it's Arsenal, and Arsenal are a good team, but I can't see us capitulating in that way that United did. 3-0 down after about 15 minutes or whatever it was. And then Burnley, again at the weekend, seem to just capitulate. It doesn't look like either of those teams have the kind of normal. I'd say we're acting just more like a normal kind of relegation battle every season, but we're just the only one doing it at the moment. I think that's it. In terms of whether we can stay up, for us, because we are such a small group of players that can really push, it really does depend on the players that stay fit for the next 12 games. We've lost a lot of key players for us, and we've got some good players in our squad, but they, stepping up to the Premier League in this league is just, it's so difficult to do when you've not got that experience. I think there are a few teams that are in danger around us. I mean, Palace, we'll see, but obviously we're playing them next. That's a huge game for us, and we'll see what they're like under the new manager. Forest as well. Again, they've got good players, but they've also got Nuno, who, well, did all right when he came in. I think he's reverted back to the kind of archetype that we know of him. Okay, maybe outside of Wolves, but that kind of more negative football's happening a bit more. So I think they're in trouble as well. Points deduction wise, obviously, well, we'll see what happens. I would say this: I think it's an absolute disgrace that we might not know what the hell's going on until after the season's finished. I don't know how that's possible. How it's possible that the Premier League can decide that a team that might be in the relegation zone is suddenly up, or a team that's up is suddenly down is absolutely crazy when you think of the finances of that.
It's mad. It's mad you say that, Mark, because I remember years ago, now I'm going back, you're talking 2005, 2006. Do you remember when Juventus were done for match fixing years ago, and they actually didn't do anything about it until the season was over, and then Inter got awarded the Serie A, and then obviously consequently there was Juventus getting relegated down to Serie B, and then obviously there was different ramifications then. I'd imagine the Premier League are going to have to streamline this before the end of the season, because there's so many financial ramifications, not only for, you look at your Everton's and they said Sheffield United there, Everton's and Nottingham Forest, who have the more charges pending, but also as well, like a club like Luton, imagine they stay up in the Premier League, what that could do for them this summer in terms of getting more revenue into the football club, maybe enhance their TV deal and maybe be able to get a few more players in to obviously stay up. We've seen Bournemouth do that down the years, and they stayed up consistently. How much revenue that could help generate for their club. Like, as well, the Premier League are going to have to make an example out of these two clubs, especially with the upcoming case of Manchester City as well. Like that's coming up in the next 12 months as well. Like, if the Premier League don't do anything about these two clubs and they prolong that, as well as prolonging the Manchester City case, they're basically telling let's say the 16 other clubs in the Premier League, you can take the piss really, and there's no ramifications, in terms of financial fair play. And I think that's where, like, look, if they're going to make an example out of clubs that are breaking the rules, not even Man City, because I know everyone's going to think I'm a United fan, I'm waiting for them 115 charges to unfold.
True.
Yeah, not even that. Like, if you look at the way Everton have overspent for years, I'm talking, you're going back nearly 9 years ago, and they're spending nearly 100 million a window when they weren't making that money back. Like, it has to come to a point where these clubs have to show they're financially sustainable, and they can't overspend in that regard. And I'm including Man United in this as well. Like, we have to spend within our means, in terms of the money we generate, and we have to spend it the right way. I know, look, Evan's a Chelsea fan. We're not going to talk to him about spending money the way Todd Bowley's after doing it in the last 2 years.
If you have it flaunted, all right? If you have it not flaunted, don't be jealous of our dash, right? It's if you have it well, you be spending it.
Yeah. Oh,
no
yeah.
Way,
like,
go.
Yeah, Leipzig just scored. It's 2-1 now in aggregate, but but yeah, like, look, it's one of them things where if the Premier League don't do something about Everton, they don't do something about Forest, and they don't have like a final solution with them alongside Manchester City, you're basically telling everyone you can take the piss. Do you know what I mean? That's effectively what they're doing. They basically tell it.
That's exactly it. Like, because basically it only really affects the top two and the bottom three. Like, after that, it's like middle table clubs don't really mind, because it's not really going to affect it going from 10th to 9th or 9th to 8th. Like, but it's the last three who are going to get relegated, that are chances of getting relegated to drop down through the league, and the players are the clubs fighting for between second and first. Like, that's what's really going to affect between that City, the 115 charges, they get relegated. It's going to affect the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal at this moment in time, and then you have the likes of Luton. Do you know what I mean? All them down at the bottom. That's who's really going to affect. And like you said, I agree with that. It needs to be streamlined big time. Because come the end of the season, if teams start getting dropped down and then next season starts rolling around, they're not going to put a halt to the whole next season just for these court cases. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And
so
it needs to be sorted.
It's going to be devastating.
It needs to be sorted. I think that in terms of the setting the precedent, I think the Premier League are desperate to do that anyway, aren't they? Because they're staring down the barrel of an independent regulator, so they want to show that they can control it. And that's where this has come from, really. Suddenly we got 6 points taken off Everton for last season's stuff. But clubs like Everton, as you said, have been overspending for years. I mean, absolutely, Mashiri's spunk hundreds of millions of pounds on absolute crap for years and years and years at that club. And it's only because they've now bought a multi-million pounds or building a new multi-million pound stadium that they've gone, all right, they've tipped the edge of it. So I think they probably will, but it's the timeline of it. I mean, they must have seen these charges coming from ages ago. I don't know. I don't understand how.
Everton ratted themselves out, though, didn't they? They went to the Premier League because they knew it was coming.
But like, the thing is, do you think they were trying to be clever with that? As like, say if we go ahead with this and just tell them we done it, will they leave us off with a warning? Do you think they kind of
could have
their own hand off? Like,
they could have had worse consequences if they didn't cooperate. They almost went, right, okay, let's see if we can get less punishment by admitting what we did was wrong. But then they still got hit with a points deduction, which obviously seems really harsh because it's never really happened before, unless it's been serious circumstances.
It's not happened in the Prem. It's happened a lot in the league. I think this is the thing. I mean, we've had 40 points worth of points deductions as a club. Nearly went out of existence of it. And I think a lot of
fucking cunts deserved it anyway, bastards.
Yeah, not quite. We had a record points deduction. I mean, but there's loads of clubs out there that went to the wall from the Football League. Your clubs like Bury, for example, still struggled and stuff like that. And there's a lot of lower league fans thinking, why should other clubs at the top have any different treatment? It's crazy, and for so long, just because the Premier League is a expensive product, it shouldn't mean that Mashiri should spend that money. And it's not just him, is it? Let's be honest. It's a load of clubs that if those people, those chairmen, pulled out tomorrow, and you haven't got oil money coming in from somewhere, then you're absolutely screwed, right? Because you're not getting the revenue. I mean, Man United, look, probably commercially still the biggest club in the world, I think, and that's I think
Real Madrid probably are the only ones.
Real Madrid, okay, fair enough. But those kind of clubs. But you just look at Barcelona, look at the state they're in, and the size of that club still. So it can happen to anybody, and it should have happened a long time ago. But I think that lots of clubs have seen it happen over the years, and us included in that as well, which made that little projection. I don't know whether you saw it, that the Everton lot did on the side about if you tolerate this, then your club will be next, and they put Bournemouth on that and Luton. And the same season we got -30, Bournemouth got like -17 or something in that season. Just like, at least just go on Wikipedia for 5 minutes and see that we've all experienced it as well. But
they're not comparable. Like, do you know what I mean? A 30-point deduction is a lot worse than
we couldn't even appeal ours. We were told if we appealed it, that's it. We give up our ticket for the league. We couldn't even appeal it.
Yeah, it's just the way.
Do you know what? As mad as it is, right? I enjoy that ruthlessness from it. Like, I enjoy the ruthlessness, and I think to be deemed the best league
stop.
in the world.
You've got a bit of evil on your face, mate. You might want to wipe that off.
No,
wait
but
till they look at Bowley's
the
accounts.
best...
Let's see how much you enjoy it then.
It's brilliant when it's...
They'll make a documentary on Todd Bowley. They'll make a documentary on Todd Bowley about all his corruption, and it'll be like a Netflix documentary that'll come out about him.
Give me The Last Dance, but for how Todd Bowley took Chelsea to League 2, please.
That would be gold.
No, but like back to what I'm saying, like, it's, you have to admire the ruthlessness, right? To be deemed the best league in the world, right? I think that's a fair statement to make. among soccer fans. It is the best league in the world, in my opinion. But to have, like, if you were to leave clubs off easy, so I know everyone's saying the point deduction is such a harsh decision, but like, you have to have that ruthlessness in it to keep that quality of best, that kind of standard of best league in the world, in my opinion, naturally enough. And look, it's going to happen, right? If you fuck up, you have to pay the price. If you get caught, you have to pay the price. Simple as. And like, if it does come Chelsea's way, I'll be in the same position. I will bitch and moan and fucking argue and cry about it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change much. It's not going to. Oh, fuck that. There's a lad in Ireland there now giving out about let's give Chelsea back them few points, or let's not give them fines out. Like, and it is shit to say, but like, at the end of the day, it's a spade's a spade. If the clubs fuck up and break rules and get caught, they're going to be punished at the end of the day. And that's just as simple as it. Like, and it is shit when it happens to your own club, but fuck me, is it entertaining for the league at the same time, because there's so much news evolved around it. So there is. Yeah,
exactly. Well, what's the alternative as well to a points deduction is a fine, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you go why would you fine someone? That's mad. So it has to be a points deduction. Surely that's it.
Yeah, I think that's the only solution you have, because like if like, but like, you know, in the thing about it is, I think the only thing that you can do is give a points deduction, because what are you going to do? Start suspending players? Do you know what I mean? Are you going to suspend their striker? Are you going to suspend their centre half? Do you know what I mean? Does their manager get a touchline ban?
The thing is with that now, it would be unfair on the person itself. So
yeah, that's
it would be punishing the club, but it'd also be unfair on the club. So I think you can fine them till the cows come home, but I think the only proper way to get through to the other club is a point reduction. Like, it has to be. Fines, like, they can throw money all you want. Like
imagine fining. Put it this way, Evan. Imagine fining Manchester City 50 million. Take Mansour, pull that out of his arse and say, "There you go. That's pocket change." I mean, that's
exactly.
Fucking half. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and he'll throw it at him. Like, he'll throw it at him at the same time.
Yeah, and he'll give it to him in £1 notes. But like, look, like, the thing about it is, I do think you have to look at it. I do think you have to look at it at the minute, and you have to say, like, clubs like Everton who haven't been self-sustainable, they deserve it as much. Like, look, maybe the 10 points was a bit steep at the time, when clubs like City were getting away with it. Forest really overspent last year. They deserve some sort of consequence of that.
Can I just say something real quick? Just see, everyone says this 10 points, right? And it sounds a lot worse than it is. If you think about it, that's 3 wins. Now, I know for a club like Everton, 3 wins might be hard to come by in a league of this standard, but like, it's 3 wins and a draw, we'll say. But like, it does sound a lot worse than it actually is.
But to be fair, Evan, these are fine margins in football. Do you know what I mean? Like, a win or
for a club like Everton, it's not really like.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It matters.
But in context, put that into context, right? Imagine a club like, I know Luton are the only newly promoted team who have a chance of staying up, right? Now imagine Luton, who've spent literally fuck all compared to Everton, who've spent hundreds of millions. Nearly, like, Everton, I put it into context. Do you know Everton have nearly spent as much as Manchester United since Fergie left? They're nearly there.
Madness. That's a mad stat.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you
compare that, bought worse though. That's the thing. Everton
and
bought worse.
We've bought badly. Now think about that for a second, right? United, we've been horrendous in the business that we've done post Sir Alex, right? And we've spunked $1 billion since Fergie left, right? And we've nothing to show for it, only a League Cup and Europa League and an FA Cup, right? In that time, with the amount of money we spent, that's horrific. You look at Everton; they've spent, like, I think it's 700 or 800 million. Since Fergie left, just to kind of do up a timeline if you're looking at the financials. And what do they have to show for it? They actually regressed since they spent that much money, since Moyes left Everton, and they've spent that much money. Now look at the amount of Luton have spent in that year, right? That they've been, or less than a year they've been in the Premier League. Buying Ogbenny for a few million, getting free transfers, and then being competitive. Do you know what I mean?
That's like, actually, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You're saying 10 points isn't a lot. 10 points is fucking huge.
It's
10
simply,
points is huge.
Our record signing was Ryan Giles, who was £5 million, and he's our record signing ever. But that's the most.
I think the best. I don't know if you touched on it already, but the best signing you've ever done in the history of your club, and I'm dying on that hill, is Ross Barkley on a free. That has to be, and that was so close to be in my last week's show. We done the best signings in Premier League history. That was so close to making it in for me. Yeah, it was so close to making it in for me.
Well, there's no argument here. Yeah, he's been phenomenal, obviously, but that's what I mean. He was on a free, unfancied in France, even wasn't doing so well, and he's new lease of life at Luton. And other players have stepped up. Like we mentioned, Ogbene was actually on a free as well. I think he's out of contract at Rotherham, and he just refused to sign a new contract, so we actually got him on a free as well. So players like that have. They'll be huge assets for us. And Ross Barkley, I've said it on loads of podcasts I've been on. He's the best player I've ever seen in Luton shirt. And there's debates about him and another midfielder that we had in the 80s and late 70s, Ricky Hill. But Ross Barkley for me has been sensational. Yeah, and a free signing.
Do you think they stay up? Luton, do you think they could stay? I mean, I think they could stay up.
I'm quite biased, but
I
think we could. I mean, I do think we could. I think that the biggest thing for me, the frustrating thing for me at the moment, is that we're playing really brave football and we're going forward and we're defending very, very high up, but we're not giving away.
It's entertaining though. It's entertaining football.
It is entertaining. It's great for the neutral, but we're always often on the wrong end of it. You take Villa, right? We gave Villa a 2-goal head start, and they weren't good goals. Ollie Watkins scored a free header, and we switched off from a quick free kick. They're things that we could and should do better from. If Ollie Watkins scores a 25-yard screamer because he can, fair enough. That's what happens in this league. But we give Villa a 2-goal head start. We get back in the game 2-2, only one winner in that, and it's us. And then again, switch off at the back post, and they score. So that's going to cost us. And as I said, I think if we've got Elijah Adebayo, our top scorer, hopefully coming back for Palace, and Sambi Lokonga, who didn't do much at Palace, hasn't done much at Arsenal, coming back in, they will make a huge difference. But the next 2 or 3 games are massive. They're absolutely massive for us.
Like even if you look at the game we played you there 2 weeks ago, like, do you know what I mean? It was 2 mistakes at the back for Highland. Do you know what I mean?
We gave you a 2-goal head start. Yeah.
Do you know, like, it's fine margins. And look, like Luton are, they've played well. If you compare the other two relegated, I'm going to say the relegated teams, I don't think they're going to stay up. In terms of Sheffield United and Burnley, like when they're playing teams, they're not really laying a glove on teams. Whereas, like, I've seen Luton come to Old Trafford and play well this season. And obviously in the away game, obviously we scored more goals, but they did make it tough for us. This season, and Bruno Fernandes said in this post-match interview that was one of the toughest games that we've played this season. I've seen the Liverpool game as well. When Ogbene roasted Trent, that was a nice chef kiss as an Irishman watching that game. But yeah, like, look, I think for them, for Luton, maybe there might be some games where maybe they need to be a bit more pragmatic. I think, like, if you look at your defenders, you have like Alfie Doughty, Ted Mengi, players like that, Kapore. Maybe it wouldn't do Luton any harm. Maybe in some games they sit a bit more compact. Maybe play on the counter attack, and you have to pace up top. Like, do you know what I mean? And you have Barkley as a playmaker, where you can sit back, play with a low block, maybe with a 4-2-3-1, and sit off some teams. But like when you have the pace you have up front, you can maybe play on the counter attack. Maybe Rob Edwards maybe needs to look at it. Maybe, especially for the run-in, maybe go a bit more pragmatic to try to get points.
It's an interesting one because, I mean, that's kind of how we started the season, and we got picked apart. So we got picked apart at Brighton without really laying a glove on them. We got picked apart against Chelsea without really laying a glove on them, and 3-0 there. And I think after the Brentford, we lost against Brentford 3-1. And I think after that, we just went, right, we're not going to stay in this league by defending. We're going to have to use our strikers and attack. And Rob, after, I think it was the City 6-2 loss in the FA Cup, basically said, well, we're not going to change. We're not going to change. Categorically, we're not going to change. So, and if we're not going to defend against City, and we didn't, Clearly, it was 8 goals in that game. Sadly, 6 of them were for them. But I think it's an interesting one. I don't think we're going to do it. I do worry. I worry about us away from home against the big teams. To be honest, it's a goal difference at that point, right? But I think we've got the goals to stay up. We've got the goals to beat teams. But yeah, very leaky at the back.
Just Mark, just on that, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Now, you might laugh at this, but would you prefer to stay up because of the love of the club, or would you prefer to go down for the club to get the money?
Go down and get what money?
To get the parachute money.
I would get more money if we stayed up still, and we'd get an extra year of parachute payments if we then went down the following year. Because staying in the Premier League still more money for us overall. Yeah, the TV rights and everything else would give us more money.
So where would you like to allocate that money if you got the option then?
Well, at the moment,
it's
gone on the ground. We're trying to build a new stadium. We've been trying to build a new stadium for years. We've got permission from Power Court. We've got the plans all through. Building should start this year. So I think that the vast majority of the money's gone on that already. A bit of that still. I think we'll always be Luton. I don't think it matters how long we stay in the Premier League, if I'm honest. I don't think we're ever going to spend huge amounts of money. I don't think we'll ever risk that. We nearly went out of the league based on it. But what I'd like to do is start building like Brentford have done. Get consolidation, start building, be able to take those top, because at the moment, top players in the Championship still won't come to a team like Luton yet. And I think getting those players is the kind of next step from things, and then maybe looking abroad as well. So it would be good to expand our kind of recruitment to a wider kind of pool and consolidate. Obviously, it'd be great to have that money, but I'd like to just make sure the club's stable. I remember in 2009 the club nearly disappearing. And it's a miracle that we're here as a club, let alone that we went from the Conference to the Premier League. So, yeah, I think sustainability is a huge thing, and most Luton fans would probably say the same thing. Yeah, we'd love to stay up. But I think actually, do you know what? That lack of pressure on having to stay up. Forest spent like a toddler with a credit card when they came up. So that meant they have to stay up because otherwise they're absolutely screwed. Everton just built a new stadium, and if that's in the Championship, they're absolutely fucked as well. Luton don't have that pressure. Luton don't have the pressure that we have to stay up either. So you're right, going down would give us some money. But yeah, I mean, staying up, it would just be about making sure our security of our club, really.
Do you know what? It's so refreshing to see a club like Luton come up on merit, not from like the amount of yo-yo clubs we've seen over the last few years where they go down, have the parachute payments, and are worried with the money going in from the Premier League that the gap is widening between the Championship and the Premier League. And in a few years, we might not see enough, underdog stories. We might not see a Luton, for example, come up via the playoffs. It will just be the same 3 that go down, the same 3 that go up every year, pretty much. So it's really refreshing.
It would actually make a good movie. So it would. Story of Luton Town. Yeah. Yeah,
100%. It's just so refreshing to see a club come up on sustainability, because Luton are fan owned, aren't they? And it's everything they do seems to be very methodical, and it's not like like you see teams in League 2 and League 1, they try and spend, like Ipswich spent for years to get out of League 1, and they finally did. But you see clubs that are able to do that, and they will try to do it, whereas it seems Luton have been methodical over the years, unlike another small club in Chelsea. Now, our boy here, Evan, he is a Chelsea fan.
Sorry, hold on. Can you just repeat that for a minute there?
You heard what I said. You heard what I said.
Hold on,
you know what I'm about. I said what I said.
Just turn up your volume there real quick. Did I just fucking hear that?
Yes, it's so refreshing to see a small club like Luton be so methodical with how they run the club and everything, unlike Chelsea, another small club.
Keep that same energy, kid, yeah?
Don't let this last 20 years, this purple patch, fool you. Chelsea been like this forever.
I'm not. Do you know what? This show could probably go on for a good solid 4 hours after this. if we got into this, but we can't. We're not going to get into it.
Why don't you talk to me about Thomas Tuchel, your favorite manager? Every week you keep going on about Thomas Tuchel. You were like the biggest Thomas Tuchel fanboy I have ever seen. Talk to me about this possible Chelsea return.
It's madness to fathom in the first place. It's mad to think. Now, me personally, I can't really see it happening. I think there's too much bad blood there, for whatever went on behind the scenes. I don't know the exact ins and outs of it, but there was rows between manager and owner.
Do you know what? Today I was reading that I was reading into the Thomas Tuchel comeback. Well, his kind of feeling about wanting to come back today, and I actually found out that it wasn't Bowley that he fell out with. It was Egbali and the other guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually Bowley, and Bowley's actually open to seeing Thomas Tuchel come back. Now, my question to you would be, as a Chelsea fan, and I know you love Bowley, but objectively think about this.
You're going to ask me if Bowley out?
No, it's not about Bowley, actually. It's about the manager, because it's about a potential return.
He's going to say yes. He loves Tuchel.
No, but let me finish my question.
How good Tuchel was.
No, because it's going to be phrased. It's going to be phrased in a way that puts me in a hard spot. So go on.
In the case, obviously, that Tuchel's obviously been sacked in obviously last year, and results weren't going your way, and effectively, Chelsea were in a bad spot, and then Tuchel got sacked. Do you think if he comes back to more or less nearly the same squad he had, do you think he'd be able to rally that squad back and get Chelsea back fighting for European places, considering the fact that we've seen managers go back to clubs before and it hasn't worked out, i.e. Frank Lampard went back to Chelsea again. I know Tuchel is way better than Frank Lampard, like way better. But it's often been the case where legends return and it doesn't go well. Do you think that could happen for Tuchel, or do you think he's too good of a manager that it wouldn't work out?
I think, because there's also arguments for the other side of managers coming back and doing well, i.e. Jose. But the thing is, right, it does come down to the players on the pitch as well at the end of the day. Like, I know you said it's more or less the same team, but there is a lot of difference in it now. The players that are there on that lineup, there's a lot of difference. Being honest with you, he shouldn't have been sacked in the first place, right? It was outrageous seeing Tuchel being sacked in the first place. Like, to bring a manager in the first time and in 18 months winning what he won, that was fucking insane. Like, absolutely insane. And to be let go after a few fucking bad games, fucking scandalous, ridiculous. And now look at the position we're in. But sure, look, I think, right, as a good a manager he is, it would take him time to come to that form again, to what he was at in his prime. It would take time, given the team that's there, in my opinion. That being said, I would give him, like, say if he came in now, I'd give him the rest of this season and all the next season. And if the results are still the same, then it's just not meant to be. But I think that's a fair amount of time to give him to get, and enough transfer windows to get him back to, we'll say, prime Tuchel, of what prime Chelsea was at the time he was managing them. I think that's a fair statement to make. But, and I would love to see it. I would love nothing more than to see it happen. So I would. But whether it is going to happen is another thing. So, like, if he does come in,
I heard a report at the time, or read, I can't remember whether I heard it from somewhere, I read it somewhere, but there was reports that apparently at the time he fell out with a lot of the players, and a lot of the players that summer before he went were looking for moves away. I don't know how true it is, but it's a worry. I know there's been mass turnover since he left, but what he did with that Chelsea side the first time around, I think they went and won the Champions League, which was half momentum-based new manager bounce and then half on merit, especially in the final when, that season, in like a month or so, the last month or so, Tuchel played Pep 3 times and beat him all 3 times. He had City's number, you know, and then obviously off the back of that Champions League win, Chelsea went into next season and they looked very good, and it became very much a conversation of this. You know, it wasn't so long ago. It was about 2 years ago. We were saying Tuchel's probably one of the elite, and if anyone was going to, you know, eclipse Klopp and Guardiola, it was going to be Tuchel. And then only a few months later, he was suddenly sacked. I've not been an advocate for him at Bayern. It's not been convincing. But what he did to that Chelsea side was he made them very difficult to beat. And I think for a guy who has played attacking football before and good football, I feel like that was almost a foundation to build upon. Just there was a bit of, you know, there was a lot of times where Chelsea didn't play with the striker. I mean, Keane, what do you think of Thomas Tuchel? I mean, do you remember when we had Ranić and there were links that maybe he might consider the United job when the ownership was in question at Chelsea, and, you know, with the Ranić link at United when he was interim? What do you make of Thomas Tuchel in general? And do you think this would be a good move for him?
You see, the thing about it is going back to clubs, sometimes it doesn't work and sometimes it does. And I just think it depends what the structure at Chelsea is like. If Todd Bowley is willing to give him time to help him rebuild the squad, and if he is willing to do a rebuild, then I think it's a no-brainer probably for Chelsea to bring him back. In that sense, if they're willing to give him the time. Look, he's a winner. Look, I think this season in the Bundesliga has just been an anomaly, really. Because Kane's still banging in the goals.
It's the Leicester, the German league. That's what I think. I think it's just a Leicester story, like.
Yeah, I think Leverkusen are doing well, and Alonso is doing a great job there. And again, like they're playing really, really good football, and they've done a good rebuilding job over a couple of years. But I think you just have to look at Tuchel's job at Dortmund. You have to look at the job he done at Chelsea briefly. And like he is a top manager. I think tactically he's very good in the way he sets his teams up in games. And look at if there's a list of successors for Erik ten Hag in a couple of months, I would like to see Tuchel on that short list. Of managers that could potentially come to United. I know that's probably going to be a show that we're going to do down the line, maybe potentially. I'm not going to speak too much about Erik ten Hag because apparently today I'm ten Hag out. Apparently, according to people on Twitter, but we won't go there today. But like the way I see it is that he's not a busted flush yet. Do you know? I think he's still a quality manager. He's a lot to give. And look, I think for him, his next job is going to be very important in terms of where he goes and what he does and how he whether he keeps or maintains that reputation he does have as a top coach. You know, that Champions League win was amazing. Though that campaign in N'Golo Kante, Mason Mount, Christian Pulisic, Timo Werner. It was a team that operated.
What was that name again? Was that an American hero you just said?
Yeah, it's Christian Pulisic. Yeah,
hero is pushing
what
it
a fucking
bit.
hero! What a hero!
But you know that team was built. That team was built on organization and pace and power. And they done well to tactically outthink City over 3 games. Maybe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gave him that blueprint of that counter-attack and masterclass against City. He done it over 4 games.
Bold statement that Ollie was.
There's also the element of common sense here. Tuchel went into a team that was predominantly playing 4 at the back a lot, and he looked at that bunch of players. And when you looked at the core group of Chelsea the previous 5-10 years, apart from Sarri, when they had Conte, they played 5 at the back. Under Mourinho, they played 4 at the back, but you could see he was a bit more defensive. I know the first half of that 2014-15 title-winning season, they were quite attacking and they were blitzing teams, but Mourinho shored the defense up a lot more after that 5-3 defeat to Spurs. But before Tuchel came in, a lot of it was, you know, based on defensive organization, compactness, and going forward. And he goes into this team and sees a lot of the players that were there. And what he saw there were a lot of players, especially the fullbacks, because we all saw under Sarri, the defense was never stable. Azpilicueta maybe didn't have the legs to be a right back anymore. Alonso and Emerson were wing backs. The centre backs like David Luiz, for example, very hit or miss. Never, Christensen plays in holding midfield on international duty, or plays as a centre of a back three. Normally, that's what he's good at. So there were a lot of players in that team that suited the 5-back formation, and I think that Tuchel going into a team and seeing just what he had and thought, right, we're going to play how I feel is best, but also like obviously with my principles, but it's an element of adjustment, or rather adapting to with the players he's got, but whilst maintaining what he wants. I mean, Mark,
but that comes down to a big thing though, Julio. It's the players that are on the pitch as well. Yeah, you have to remind yourself of that. Like,
100%.
Could he do the same thing at Everton? We'll just say Everton off the top of the head because we're talking. Could he do the exact same thing that he done with Chelsea with Everton? That's the point as well. Like,
well, no, because players that are on the Champions League.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But the players that are on the pitch are big help. Like, do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Quality is obviously like it has its way, but I just appreciate a manager who's gone in and has gone, right, you've been playing 4 at the back last few years, scrap that. You guys, if you want to play it, great, but it's because the problem under Lampard was going forward, Chelsea were okay. It was going back the other way that they were never really convincing. And I do want to raise the question to you, Mark, about managers going back, because you witnessed firsthand Nathan Jones leaving for a bigger job, coming back with his tail between his legs almost, and then going again. And I just wanted to know, like, what were your thoughts around all of that with Nathan Jones? And do you think it could translate if you thought that went well, or if you thought that went badly? How could that translate to this scenario with Chelsea?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different. But Nathan Jones went to his bigger job, which was Stoke. I think they're in the relegation zone in the Championship still, but we'll see how big they are now. Yeah, so
I love the shade. I love it.
I can't help it. But he left. I think we were all. He's one of those that, as you've seen in the very brief time he was in the Premier League, he says what he thinks, and sometimes what he thinks is probably best kept to himself. But he really bought into the club. When he left, it was a little bit heartbreaking, to be honest. The difference is it was such a specific scenario when he came back. He came back in COVID. We were at the time 6 points from safety, rock bottom of the Championship, 9 games to go under Graham Jones, who is now coach at Newcastle. And sorry, my dog's making a load of noises. She's snoring, just in case you wonder what that noise is in the background. And
I thought it was Evan, so that's my bad.
Yeah. She's just
fart like mad, so I am. Fart.
But no, so yeah, very, very specific circumstance. And when he came back to a squad that was a lot of the players that he had there as well, that loved him, had bought into him, and hadn't really bought into anything that had been Graham Jones since. And he did a great job, and he stayed with us obviously until he went to Southampton. I think the thing that worked for Nathan Jones and us is we were an underdog, right? And so he was able to do things and have full control over that team. Chelsea, of course, are not that. And I think that gradually that control has gone away. I mean, you probably know better than me, but I imagine that under Mourinho in particular, you've got a top-down controlling manager who wants to have every say. I mean, he did it, or he tried to do it, Man U, and got a load of problem about it as well. But that control now is, Bowley's looking to try and do this Moneyball thing. I don't see managers having any control over that team at all anymore. I know that it's not that long since Tuchel was there. I think that's a problem. I also think that, I don't know, again, Chelsea feel like a bit like they've got a Man U problem. They've got loads of good players, but there's no coherent style of play that's always consistent, right? Cole Palmer, I've seen twice against us, and particularly the time at Kenilworth Road, one of the best players I've seen play against us, especially considering his age.
Just touching on that, Mark. Do you think that comes down to ego on the pitch then?
Probably when you're paying whatever £1 billion you're paying for players on a 6-year contract, probably. You know, it's going to have an impact, right? Without being too silly, but if you're going to pay, however much did you pay for Moises Caicedo from Brighton? Was it 80?
Well, 114 million it was.
You can go a bit
was it
more
than that? Right, okay, but it's
It
like
was
a
in the
6-year
hundreds,
contract,
yeah.
whatever. It's gonna have an impact, isn't it, on players and their ego? United, the same thing. When you've got players like Anthony, another example that I think you paid. I think most you feel free to argue, but I think most United fans that I've spoken to believe that you paid over the odds for him at least.
Oh, like we could have got Anthony
Over the odds is being
5 million.
kind.
Yeah, well, I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be.
No, Mark, don't be kind. Don't be kind here.
Well,
don't be kind. Say what
yeah,
Say it
with
how
your
it
chest.
is, because it's probably
Say
accurate.
with your chest.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, you've got players like that, and you've got at Chelsea, you've got players like Thiago Silva who must look at players being paid or that amount of money being spent on players like that and wondering what the hell's going on. I mean, so I think that's part of the problem. We still had the core of the team for Nathan Jones to do what he did. He did a miraculous job in keeping us up. Don't get me wrong. And Mourinho coming back to Chelsea for a while worked until it went absolutely terribly. But I think specifically that the problem often is going to be how much control that manager's going to have and how much time. We will take Rob Edwards. We will give Rob Edwards as much time as he needs. He's going nowhere. It doesn't matter if we get relegated, he's going nowhere. And he knows that. And that gives him that security to build a team. Whereas Potter was supposed to have time and to get any time. And you're doing as well or as badly, however you want to word it, under Poch, right? Almost the same points. I saw it online the other day. I think it's pretty much the same points under both managers.
Well, in fairness, I would argue Potter was never the right man for the job in the first place.
Oh yeah, sure, that could well be the case. But I think that Chelsea particularly, of course, in the past under Abramovich, have always been known to bin off managers whenever they've stopped winning stuff as well. So I guess it's having that kind of emphasis on being able to build a team is difficult when you've not necessarily demonstrated that always in the past as well. I think United more recently have been similar, right? Man United managers have been all over the place, like scattergun technique of hiring managers. Is it going to be an ex-player like Solskjaer and building a project, and then Ranić, weird, but or Ten Hag.
To be honest with you, I think Ali was underrated. I don't think Ali got enough of a chance, really.
Evan, I think, look, if you watch his interview on the Overlap today, to be fair, he asked for Haaland and Bellingham, and he was given Donny van de Beek and Oli Nagalo. Do you know what I mean?
Who was he given? Who was the first man?
Donny van de Beek and
Donny van de Beek.
But he was given these type of players. To be fair, Solskjaer probably could have stayed on and probably got top 4 that season. He probably could have before he left. I think all fell asunder. We had Rangnick in there. He was a bit of a dictator. And it didn't work. Look, to be fair, I think you're talking about Man United's failures. I think the Glazers were giving investment bankers the money to buy players, not directors of football or anything like that.
Hey, hold on now. We will not have any Glazer slander on this show, please. They are the good guys.
We will have Glazer slander. But when you look at that from that perspective, if you look at a club like Luton, right, at the moment, who are spending their money in a way where they're getting their recruitment people to get the right players to help keep them up, right? Manchester United were spending £1 billion with the idea of winning Premier Leagues, finishing Champions League places, and what they were really doing was buying players to sell shirts, effectively. Your Ronaldos, your Casemiros, players like that, Rafael Varane, players like that who have
Falcao, Di Maria, Schweinsteiger.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No players for the long term, and that's where Man United have gone wrong, and that's why under this new regime of Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, Brailsford, I think we'll see a lot longer building. It's going to be painful, I think, for the first couple of years, to get rid of the deadwood within the club, and then obviously to recruit players for the long term. But look, at the end of the day, I think if you look at Man United and you look at Chelsea at the moment, if you tell me right now, I'd say who has a better chance of succeeding, I will say Chelsea right now, because we haven't seen a summer of what Ratcliffe and Joe Ineos can do at Manchester United. Like, effectively, if the Glazers aren't making footballing decisions at Man United, it can only improve, because the footballing decisions they were making weren't footballing decisions. Joe, it was the quite opposite of that. So Man United can only go up from here. It can't get any worse. They're at the football club, really. But like, look, time will tell. I could be wrong here. I could be brutally wrong, and Ratcliffe could be another Glazer, which I hope not. I really hope not. But look, time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I actually think with Chelsea overall, I think what they've done the last year and a half, 2 years, has been basically a case of they've brought in loads of players. Because of that, they've tried to settle in to a team, and then because they found it difficult to settle in, then they've got rid of a lot of the core that were there, and then they've brought in a bunch of new players. So now what you got is like 20 or so individuals in the building who've only been there for a year, and they can't seem to gel as a team. So it looks very much individuals on the pitch. I think a transfer ban could help Chelsea for a couple of years. Let that squad marinate, let it settle, and then eventually figure out who's good enough, who isn't, and maybe they'd be closer to the top four, which leads us nicely to our final topic on Aston Villa. You know, they're looking very good this season under Emery. I'm glad to see that finally some respect is being put to his name, as opposed to what was going on for him at Arsenal. Keane, I'll get your input on it first. Like, do you think Aston Villa could do it, looking at how the teams are around them?
I certainly make them favourites right now. I think for us, I think Man United we're a bit off. I don't think we'll have the consistency between now and the end of the season to challenge for top four. I think Man United's aim right now is probably fifth, with the hope, well, not the hope, but with the expectation that Manchester City will win the Champions League and Liverpool will win the Europa League. And that ultimately will help Man United in the with the coefficiency to finish fifth and get into the Champions League that way. I think that's our best hope. I do think it's probably between Villa and Spurs right now. I think Villa just have that bit more cohesion, they have a bit more organisation. I think Spurs have only one way of playing at the moment through Andrew, and that's still play high press, attacking football. And it seems like teams in the last couple of months, well, the last 2 months have kind of figured that out now, and Spurs are having a bit more of a tough time. Whereas if I look at Villa, they can be a bit more pragmatic in games. They can counter attack, but also in certain games they can take it to other teams as well. I really like the way Unai Emery has them set up. I think he's a fantastic manager. And I do think, like, if you look at this, is probably going to be a bold statement. I'm probably going to get smacked around the place for this, but if Unai Emery had that Arsenal team last year, and Arteta didn't have that team last year, Unai Emery wins the league because he gets them over the line defensively.
Do you think?
I think so, and I'll tell you why. Defensively, I think he's a better defensive manager than Arteta. Arteta is very good going forward. And you look at the games where Arsenal dropped points last year, they weren't pragmatic enough, and they were very naive. I think in them games, Unai Emery would have gotten them over the line and won them the league. Now, I could be wrong. Here, but I do think he's a top class manager, and he's. You look at his record in Europe with Villarreal winning Europa Leagues with Sevilla, and then getting Villa from the relegation zone up to challenging for Champions League, and then and also into Europe this year through the Conference League. I think he's a fantastic manager, and he deserves the credit for taking Villa into danger of getting relegated under Steven Gerrard to where they are now. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think what you get with Emery is you get a guy who knows how to make a team organized. I think when he was at Arsenal, you look at the defenders he had, he couldn't get that team organized. You can't coach Socrates, Mustafi, David Luiz to be defensively sound, because it's honestly a circus at the back there. So
imagine he had Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, and Ben White now. Imagine he had that defense compared to the defense
he might have played Tierney over Zinchenko, to be fair.
Yeah, whichever.
Probably would have, yeah.
Or Jury and Timber, he has to come back as well. Imagine he had that back forward, Timber as the left back. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where, for me, I think Unai Emery is
Emery's a winner.
He's a winner, yeah.
Yeah. Evan, do you think they'll do it?
I think the team is just solid. Like they're on a roll, and I think they're going to stay on a roll. Like I said it weeks ago as well. I said it. I think even on the first show, I think if you look at the strikers in the Premier League at the moment, behind Haaland, who do you have? Like you've Watkins. I think Watkins, and I think how Watkins didn't get signed by a big club is beyond me. Like so he's a dark horse. You can even go back and watch the shows. I've even said this, and he's an absolute talent. Then you have Diaby, you have Douglas Luiz. Do you know what I mean? You have all these supporting players in around him. I think it's madness that the players that are on the pitch and they're being so overlooked, but yet they're doing so well. Like, and I think they're going. I think they'll win. I think Ajax in the conference. Is it?
Yeah,
They're playing
Ajax,
next. And then they have Spurs then away. Like I think that's the 2 easy wins for them with the way they're going. I think they beat Spurs handy. 2-0, 2-1. Like it's like there is no really sign of stopping them. And if things don't go Arsenal's way or City's way, there's no reason why they can't push further up on the table, like into third, even second, boldly enough to say it. Like,
yeah, I just worry. I mean, it's really refreshing, I think, watching as a neutral, to see a team outside the top 6 actually pose a challenge, and show that they can break into that top 4. The only worry is, obviously, there might come a point in the next couple of years, because of the FFP rules, which seem to be there just to protect the big clubs. There might be an instance where Villa might have to sell 1 or 2 of their players, which, when you look at it from that perspective, it's not really good. But you'd hope that Villa might be able to.
Being honest with you, this season would
wisely.
kind of, if they do have to sell players, this season is going to be a bonus for them, because with how well they're doing, they can up market prices. So they can.
True.
They can up market prices completely.
They can do what Brighton are doing, sure. If you look at Brighton and they're charging people like 114 million for Caicedo, do you know what I mean? Imagine what they can charge people for Douglas Luiz, or with the way inflation is there. Like, you imagine Ollie Watkins, he's going for about 60, 70 million now, easily.
He has the English tax, like. The English tax on Watkins, then on top of it, like.
I think Watkins goes for over 100 million if he goes somewhere.
Easy. I would gladly say, if someone said, Watkins 100 million, I would like, that's fair, yeah.
Strikers who score goals are becoming a rarity as well. I've said it before.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying.
We don't have enough finishers anymore.
Yeah.
You've Haaland, you've Watkins, then you have Ivan Toney. Who else is there?
Then you have Rasmus Højlund.
You've Højlund after that, like. Other than that, who else is in the league? You've Isaac,
Nunes,
you've Wilson. Nunes. I wouldn't put Nunes that high up, like. But you've
Nunes is
Wilson, you've Isaac. Who else is there then after that? Do you know what I mean? There's
Joe Pedro. Joe Pedro from Brighton.
He only scores penalties.
No. I was going to say very much a penalty merchant.
Like after that, you're looking outside the Premier League, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Then
and
you're paying outside the Premier League, them, like.
There isn't much value. I mean, Mark, how do you see this Aston Villa season and how far they could go this season?
Yeah, I think, like everyone said, I think that tactically they're so solid. They're really consistent. They play an amazing high-line football as well. They play exciting football to watch. I think, as has already been said, I think Emery tactically is fantastic as well. He can see his way through games. I think with them, like with a lot of them, they get 2 or 3 injuries and they're in trouble. But I mean, I'll take Moussa Diaby, for example. I think he came on with like 10 minutes to go against us. And I was thinking at the time, because he played the away leg and absolutely tore us apart. And I thought, like, with 10 minutes to go, he's only got 10 minutes. We'll be fine. Just got to hold on for 10 minutes. 1 cross, bang, goal. So, their quality is pretty phenomenal. And as you said, they can score goals. They score a lot of goals. And that's so key, isn't it? I think for the teams in and around there, to be able to score goals against big teams. And it is Ollie Watkins, was great first half against us. It was quite a second half. But like Douglas Luiz, players like that just can can nip in with a few goals as well. And McGinn is absolute class. I don't know, he's getting on a bit now, isn't he, McGinn? But his delivery is just phenomenal as well. Like, yeah, all over the pitch. I think they'll. I think, and I kind of hope that they do make top four. As you said, I think it's refreshing to have a different team up there as well. I think they can certainly win the conference as well. But again, I guess kind of below their best. They haven't got the depth of squad as maybe some of the other teams do. I say that, but Spurs probably don't really have much depth to their squad now either. And obviously they've had quite a few injuries too. But that would be the only thing, I guess, for them. But yeah, quality.
Just a quick one there, just touching on what Julio and yourself said, Mark, there. I think it could lead on for a potential, could be even an hour-long show now at this stage. It could take up. But would you say this would be the most exciting league, exciting season, sorry, I should say, in the past few years? Would this be the best season to watch now if you're going back to past, we'll say 5 years?
I think it depends. I'm going to be really biased about this anyway, right? But I think it depends if it goes down and comes up as well. Because if all the three teams that went up go down, I think that's a bit of a sad thing to happen generally. Obviously, I think that. I'm a Luton fan. I think I'm trying to think in terms of like teams that are pushing. Brighton last year was pretty exciting, and what they did as well. It's always good to have like one or two teams. Not like long ago, was it West Ham the season before? Sort of teams in and around there.
But even with the way Villa are now, right, and the way they're up the top four, and the dogfight and the story that is Luton Town like this season,
yeah.
Do you not think it would be? I think it's up there. I think if it's not first, it's definitely second. Like it was saying.
Well, I mean, I think if we
past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, if we stay up, and how we've played already has been phenomenal. It's been great already to be in with a good shout of it. If we stay up, for me, it's up there. It's up there with Leicester. It's better than Leicester for me because of the size of the club and everything else. But that's up for debate. And as I said, I live that way, so it would be debated. But if we stay up, absolutely, it's got to be one of the stories of the Premier League. You think how much we were written off at the start of the season, and no problem with it because it's going to happen. But some of the comments were just ridiculous. The jokes that were, I can't believe you signed a free player from Rotherham. It just shows the kind of ambition of the club. That free player from Rotherham, by the way, skinned 3 Liverpool players and set up a goal. So
probably the best sign of the season.
He also went to the Parc des Princes and and man-marked Kylian Mbappe
out of the game. Yeah, exactly that. So, and that, but that's it. So I think for us, I think it's huge, and I think we've changed a lot of people's minds about us as a club who thought we were just going to go there, take the money, thank you very much, and get Derby's points record broken and everything else along with it. So yeah, I think that would be it. Obviously, again, I'm biased. I think it would be the most exciting or the best story that's there. I think if other teams, like the Brentfords and stuff, they keep pushing up as well. I think it's good for the Premier League. I think teams like us and those teams creating competition and winning those games helps teams in the Championship as well believe that actually it's doable and it isn't just the same old 3 or 4 teams like you mentioned. I remember watching the Premier League where it's always Norwich, West Brom. It's always those teams back and forth playing dull, lifeless, sit out the back football. Stoke were one of them as well. So yeah, it's great to see that. It's great for football. It's great for the pyramid if teams can stay up and do well. It is sad to see that there's from a neutral point of view, it is sad to see, I guess, that that Sheffield United and Burnley not even putting up a fight. I think Sheffield United are on minus 50 goal difference. That's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Gents, would you believe we're about to hit the 1 hour 20 mark, and this show could go on for hours, but unfortunately, I don't think we all have that kind of time and leisure, unfortunately. I've really enjoyed the show this evening. Mark, thank you for coming on tonight. Where can
No
people
problem.
find you?
Yeah, so at We Are Luton Town podcast is on Twitter, Instagram, all the usual feeds, and you can find it on podcast feeds every week as well. Articles every week as well as Instagram, Twitter live spaces too, or X live spaces. I can still never call it X, but yeah.
Legend, Mark.
Yeah,
Legend.
I
Happy
don't
days.
think any of us can. Evan, where can people abuse you?
Oh, well, wherever you want to, really. Live chat is probably the best place to do it. Every Wednesday, 9 o'clock. Or if you want to do it on a daily, the Jersey Man on TikTok is probably the main one. Or if you want to on Twitter, it's EvanFahy98.
No worries. Keen, thank you so much for jumping in at short notice tonight. I hope it was worth it. Where can people find you?
So if you have a burner account on Twitter, you can catch me at United_Clean23. If you want to go in there and abuse me under my Irish football tweets. But other than that, you catch me here every week on the Devil's Advocate podcast. We'll have our preview show this Friday for the Everton game, and we'll review Saturday. And also, you can catch our pods on the Sports Social Podcast Network if you listen on Apple or Spotify, or Google or Amazon, any of them different podcast networks. You can catch us. And do keep supporting the channel. And thanks again to Mark for coming on. Do appreciate it, man.
No problem at all.
You're a legend, Mark. You're a legend.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed
No
it.
worries.
Cheers.
From all of us at Talk of the League, have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.